Chapter 163. Chris was a man with a very high status and reputation. Therefore, he felt very irritated by Gary's words. "What do you mean?" "Mr. Tyler, let me deal with him," Tim said in a deep voice at this time as he stepped forward to defend Chris. "If you dare to stop Mr. Tyler from leaving, then do not blame me for being merciless." Everyone started cheering when they saw that Tim was about to make a move. "Mr. David, let this despicable man taste the power of your fists. An outsider actually wants to be in control of the entire metaphysics circle. He must be crazy. I think he should stop daydreaming. Hold him back. Don't let him get his way." At this time, Gary smiled as he glared at Tim with a cold expression on his face. "If you really think you can defeat me, then bring it on." Tim was furious at this time and he launched himself towards Gary as he aimed his fist at his face. This was obviously a very powerful punch because Tim was not an ordinary man. "Do you really think you could do anything to me?" Everyone felt a swift movement, and at this time, Gary was already standing on the other side of Tim as he stretched out his hand and stuck a yellow talisman on his forehead. "His movements are so quick," Faria exclaimed in surprise. At this time, Tim stood still as though he was currently under a spell. He was stiff and motionless, and the only thing that he could move at this time were his eyes. Gary smiled slyly before he suddenly shouted, "Get on your knees. Squat down." Tim suddenly fell to the ground and he was on all fours, as though he was submitting to an order. "Mr. David," Chris yelled as he stared at the man on the ground. The crowd of people were also exchanging glances with one another in shock. As he was already under Gary's spell, Tim could not resist or disobey any of his orders at all. This was how powerful Gary's spell was. Tim was standing on all fours on the ground and he looked extremely annoyed and frustrated at this time, but it seemed as though he had no control over his body at all. At this time, he suddenly yelled in a furious manner, "You are a dog. What kind of witchcraft did you just use on me? You actually thought that you could defeat me with such a low skill level?" Gary suddenly asked in a mocking tone. "I want you to bark like a dog now." Tim was horrified and he tried to keep his mouth shut. However, he could not even control his own reflexes, and in the next second, he was already barking like a dog. Chris was so shocked at this time and he almost fell to the ground. Tim was almost 50 years old, but he was actually standing on all fours in front of Gary, acting and barking like a dog obeying its master's instructions. This would have been a funny scene if not for the deadly silence in the background. The crowd of people were horrified and they could feel fear creeping up their backs. Gary had actually defeated two of the masters in a row in less than 15 minutes. How could he be so powerful? Puppetry. This is the puppetry skills from Tanzania that had been long lost. Aaron suddenly murmured with a shocked expression on his face. After he finished speaking, there was some whispering in the background. The puppet technique was initially a secret art technique that was passed down from the older generations in Tanzania. However, it had already been long lost and this technique had not been seen in the longest time. None of the guests would have expected to witness this puppetry technique with their own eyes. This proved that Gary's skills and abilities were limitless and it felt as though there would not be anyone here who could challenge him.